Morning, everyone. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners. It is August. Yeah, August. August was a great month. How about November 9th?
Much sunshine this morning.
It was nice. We'll go back to that afterwards. So, there's extra agendas on the back table by the door and we're looking for comments not on this agenda.
And come up or?
Mr. Hurdle.
Alright. I'm here as the fire chief of Southwest Polk, Fred Hurdle, and do I need the address or?
I think we're good.
Okay. So Southwest Polk celebrates 75 years of being a fire service district in Polk County this year. And some of you attended that. You've supported us and been part of making us who we are. And each of you as commissioners and your staff. And sometimes we don't always recognize each other for what our accomplishments are and how we support each other and help each other. So I kind of created a little list of some of the staff of the county that we work with on a regular basis and what they kind of help us with. And so I'll start with Greg Hansen. So he helps us on a multitude of items, everything from grants to elections to ASA and those type of things. And just kind of a good person to lean on when we need something and helps us guide and migrate through the county. Morgan Smith, who's helping us with elections and annexations. Valerie, who is with elections, has helped us with elections for our bonds, our levies, and our board members. So the other Valerie helped us with revenue, assessed values. She, of course, we lean on to make decisions as we move forward with anything in her realm. Todd Whitaker helps us with roads and bridges. And to the point that they've even brought out a track hoe when we had a fatal fire and helped us move debris to be able to get the bodies out of the fire. And so there's items that I'm not sure that everybody is aware of that the county supports us in. And so Dean Bender, radios, ASA, emergency management, Mark Garten, emergency responses, Everbridge notification system, Austin McGuigan and Blaine through property, building the 3 stations and ongoing fire code compliance stuff. We work with the county quite regularly every day, just about, and for sure every week I'm on the phone with at least somebody that is involved in this county. And you have amazing staff, and I see on your agenda you're going to award some years of service stuff, and that is just awesome. And it shows that your county is in good shape and moving forward in the right direction. And we're proud to be part of that and proud to provide fire and EMS services. My board of directors is here and they just wanted to share with you these coins, and I brought enough that you could get them to the staff that we talked about and whomever else. Just give them to Greg if that's all right. Keep responsible.
Okay.
And that was really it. I just wanted to say thank you from Southwest Polk for helping us and being part of this for 75 years.
Thank you for what you do, sir.
Thank you.
Thank all of you guys and staff. Looking for approval of agenda.
So move. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Approval of minutes from November 2nd.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. That brings us to length of service awards. Mr. Matt Hawkins.
Good morning. Yes, I am here to present actually multiple names. We are fortunate enough to have 3 of these individuals present here today. So when we call their names, if they could come on down and, as we say, walk the gauntlet, shake hands. So the first person we would like to recognize for years of service, for 10 years of service, is Kristen Beck with our Health Services Department.
Go down the line. Kristen, appreciate it.
Just getting started.
Yeah. Bumps are loud.
Plenty more to go.
The next one, I'm going to admit, threw me off a little bit, and I had to ask him. I was like, I think we're wrong. But we're going to recognize Martin Axford for 10 years of service to General Services. I was asking him because obviously most of you know, years ago, I was at the juvenile department. I remember like many years ago, Martin was there, but he was temp employee at that time. So Martin, come on down. Sir.
Thank you.
Next, we get to actually jump a few years and years of service. But we would like to recognize, since he's here, Eric Berry for 30 years of service. to the town.
Did you get the walker? Thanks so much, Eric. Thank you. Somebody's lied about your record. No way. No way. Just keep paying them and they just keep lying.
We do have three more individuals to recognize today that are not present with us. We would like to recognize
What's
Ken Dunnigan. Oh, don't worry, I'll be giving her some stuff later. I don't know, I'll deal with it. She really likes crowds, you know, Melanie. Anyway, 15 years of service for Ken Dunnigan with our Public Works Department. Eric, I'm gonna give this to you to take out there to Ken. We'd also like to recognize for 20 years of service, Scott Eastland in our Sheriff's Department. And then finally, we will recognize, because Mr. Hands is going to be too slow, Melanie Edwards for 25 years of service. Keep in mind that is years of service from one date. She had a little break. She has more than that because she started here at 16. So
Their absences
Actually.
being excused?
are her absence, she did not clear that with her supervisor. So I'll have a chat with her.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Wow. We're doing some things right as far as how we make a comfortable place for people to work, because we have kids that are being recognized for 25 and 30 years. And they look so sharp and vital and like they have lots of gas left in the tank and they could just keep going.
Keep going.
I've heard some retirement chatter out there about you, but
I haven't picked a date.
no,
36 is a little young for retirement.
it is.
He started at 6. We have some child labor laws.
There she is. There she is. Come on, come on.
No.
Oh, yes.
25 years. Oh, you're lucky. It's okay.
We'll be revoking Mr. Hanson's access to her office.
I just reached around the door and opened it. Thanks,
Thank you.
Monmouth Urban Renewal Amendment, notice to taxing districts. Suzanne Duffner and Marty Wine and Elaine Howard.
Only two of the
Good
three.
morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Marty Wine. I'm the city manager for City of Monmouth, and I have with me today Suzanne Duffner, our Community and Economic Development Director. And we're here to brief you about the proposed substantial amendment to our urban renewal plan. We've been working together with Elaine Howard of Elaine Howard Consulting, who is here virtually with Tiberius Solutions, put together the proposed amendment. And so we're here, we want to brief the Board of Commissioners and answer questions that you might have about this proposed change. And I'm going to hand it over to Elaine, I think, to get us
Yes.
started.
Yes, and would you like me to share my screen? Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I'm Elaine Howard. I'm a consultant working with the City of Monmouth and Monmouth Urban Renewal Agency. I appeared before you just a little while ago with the city of Dallas, so I'm familiar with you and very familiar with your area. What we will go over today is the role of the county in this amendment, the amendment details, and the next steps. The role of the county in a substantial amendment that increases maximum indebtedness is that the city and agency is required to brief the county on that increase in the maximum indebtedness, and specifically to let you know what the impact of that potential increase is. This is a little different from the Dallas briefing because this is an amendment to an existing plan, not creating a new plan. However, the process for doing a substantial amendment is exactly the same as doing a new plan. So it requires public input be allowed throughout the different steps of the plan, that the agency reviews the substantial amendment and decides to send it out for formal review. And that step has happened. And you did receive a letter from the agency, from City Manager Wine on the proposed amendment. Is required to send it to all the taxing districts and give you a minimum 45 days to respond in writing if you desire. It has to go to the Planning Commission for their review of the comprehensive plan, and that has happened, and they did vote that the amendment conforms to the Monmouth Comprehensive Plan. And then there is a city council hearing and vote that must be noticed to all residents within the city of Monmouth, and they are doing that through their utility bill. The changes to the plan are increasing the spending authority or the maximum indebtedness, and the next slide goes through the specifics of that. Removing the duration provision of the plan, revenue sharing with the impacted taxing districts will commence. It is adding 2 pieces of property, adding projects, and then just a general updating of the plan. The proposed maximum indebtedness increase is from the existing maximum indebtedness of $12 million to a new maximum indebtedness of $16,359,245. That amount equals the amount that's allowed through ORS 457 for a city council to increase their maximum indebtedness through their own authority. That amount equals the original maximum indebtedness increased annually by the inflation rate that the city uses for their construction projects, and then taking 20% of that amount. So that increase brings that maximum indebtedness to the $16 million number. That increase may only be done after going through the substantial amendment process I just outlined. And again, we are proposing removal of the duration provision, and the ORS 457 just requires that duration be tied to the maximum indebtedness, and reaching that maximum indebtedness. We do have estimates of when that will happen, and I can go through that on the next slides. And then again, revenue sharing commences. So the way the statute is written is when a urban renewal agency increases their maximum indebtedness from an existing plan, they then are subject to the revenue sharing provisions of the statute. Those sharing provisions commence when the urban renewal agency begins receiving 10% of its original maximum indebtedness on an annual basis. The original maximum indebtedness was $12 million, so that 10% is $1.2 million, and they are projected to receive that amount in fiscal year end 2026, which means the revenue sharing begins the next year, fiscal year end 2027. Revenue sharing is an interesting and a little bit different provision than we are used to. It is in the statute only recently and was put in at the request of the special districts. They did also put in a provision that revenue sharing can be waived if 75% of the taxing districts that represent 75% of the permanent rate levy vote to waive the revenue sharing provisions. What that means is you could say, we don't want those little amounts of money over the time frame. What we really want is for you to reach your maximum indebtedness at an earlier date and to close down the district. I do at the end of this PowerPoint have a memorandum, draft memorandum that I wrote to the city yesterday that I can also bring up that will show you those potential revenue sharing amounts and what it would take to get to that 75% amount if you are interested in seeing that. This shows the urban renewal boundary with the potential 2 properties to be added. Those 2 properties are shown with stars on the map. They are both properties where housing developments are projected to be constructed, and those developments require some assistance from the Urban Renewal Agency. So they would be able to provide some assistance to allow those 2 developments to proceed. Monmouth, like most every other city in the state, has housing needs, and being able to help stimulate that housing is an important project to the city. This shows the specific property. They're just 2 very small parcels shown in the turquoise outline. And this shows the other property down at the bottom. These are the projects to be undertaken, and I'll just go through the financial part of that, and then Suzanne will go through what those projects are more specifically. They are listed in constant fiscal year in 2023 dollars, so the dollars that it would cost if they were able to do those projects today, and then year of expenditure dollars. In this amendment, those 2 vary a very small amount, because they are able to do those projects pretty quickly. So there isn't a lot of inflation increase to those projects, because if the amendment passes, they'll be able to undertake them fairly quickly. So those differences are really only between 9.3 million and 9.9 million, where if you're looking at a full 25 or 30-year plan, those differences vary greatly. So I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne here for a minute to go through the projects that are being desired.
Thanks, Elaine. So just kind of a high level overview of some of those projects that we're looking at adding as a result of this amendment. They're primarily infrastructure related in nature. So we see this as kind of our primary role and assistance in helping parcels redevelop or develop. So we have, for example, some water line and sewer line main line projects that are in our master plans that are needed to open up certain areas that are in the urban renewal district and currently not able to develop unless they have some additional incentive there. So that's the bulk of them in our water, our sanitary sewer, and our transportation system plans. And then we also have some portions of those projects where we would provide financial incentives, again, to help fill that gap of making some of our economic development projects happen that wouldn't happen but for the urban renewal incentive. And we've done some of these successfully in the past through the S-curves development, Ash Creek Station, where Ross is currently located at. We help pay some SCC fees for that out of our urban renewal to help that project get started and be a catalyst to more investment. And again, that's kind of the main reason why we have the urban renewal, is to help be that catalyst that spurs that development, so we can increase the amount of properties and valuation on the tax rolls. Another recent example was the Monmouth Commons. We also served as provided some incentives on paying some of the infrastructure costs and the development fees related to that project. So looking for some of those projects that we could work on for our economic development, create more jobs in the future. And then lastly, there's a piece of the project funding reserved for the actual administration of the plan. So recognizing that it takes staff capacity to actually put some of these projects and proposals and manage them. So we have some funds carved out to be able to help with that. So I think that's Elaine, if you want to.
Yes,
Great, thanks.
this shows the impacts to the taxing districts of the amendment only. So it shows those impacts starting in fiscal year end 2027. This area is actually expected to go through fiscal year in 2035. And the next slide will show that full impact of the amendment that goes through that final date. You can see for Polk County, the overall, the impact of the amendment is $743,455. This just shows the impact of the existing maximum indebtedness added to the impact of the amendment. So you can see the full impact of the urban renewal area on your taxing jurisdiction. So you can see the Polk County is 1,859,783, and that would be as a result of doing the amendment. This shows those impacts to taxing districts on the education side. And as we know, the school district and the education service district are funded through the state school fund. So that impact is indirect. They still receive their allocations on a per pupil basis. The community college has a similar funding ratio based on classes taken. And this shows the impacts to the taxing districts, the full impact of the existing plan and the amendment together. The next steps and schedule for, and I think these have just recently changed, so I didn't get them changed on this slide, and I'm sorry about that. But the city council hearing will actually be on January 3rd, not December 6th. And then the vote will be 2 weeks later on January 17th. And I'm going to stop sharing that. And if there is interest from the commission, I'd be happy to bring up some of the information on the revenue sharing so you can see specifically what that means to you.
Yes.
Yes, please. Thanks, Elaine.
Yes. Let's see. Can you see the memo?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This shows the revenue sharing projections. And again, these are projections based on the growth, the historical growth that's been happening in Monmouth. So at the point that they reach the thresholds, the agency is required to share initially everything that they get 10% of the original maximum indebtedness plus 25% of anything above that. And the remainder of that gets shared with overlapping taxing districts. So in the general government category, in the first year of sharing, that's predicted to be $63,000. And of that, Polk County would receive approximately $15,240. And then you can see how that goes through each year to 2035. So that in 2035, you would be getting as a county $211,655. And again, those are estimates for a total revenue sharing of $578,230. We did not specifically ask for any of the taxing jurisdictions to consider the revenue sharing. We only wanted to present it as an option and allow the taxing districts to tell us whether they're interested in looking at revenue sharing. If they are interested, then the taxing districts would have to adopt a resolution of their board specifying that they wanted revenue sharing to commence. We went over this with Valerie, your county assessor, yesterday. The way revenue sharing works, it's either all or nothing. So although only a few taxing districts can decide to do revenue sharing, it would impact all the taxing districts. So we can't opt out and say, well, the city wants to do revenue sharing, but the fire district doesn't. If the city pursued the revenue sharing issue, it would impact all of the different taxing jurisdictions. To be able to get to that 75% threshold, I outlined a couple of ways that could happen to reach the 75%. You can see here that each of these three scenarios adds up to over 75% of the permanent rate levy. So in scenario one, it would be the city, the school district, and the county could add up to 78%. So if those three boards made that decision, that would make that happen for all districts. The second scenario would be the city, the fire department, and the school district. And the third would be you really have to get all of the other little districts to agree. So the smaller impacts, so the library, the city, the Fircrest CD, Polk Soil and Water, Ash Creek Water District, the Education Service District, the school district, the community college, and that would not get us to the full 75% unless you round it up. So it gets you to 74.65%. Again, we are gauging interest. We did have some questions from other districts about what that would mean. We wanted to go over this presentation with you today to see whether you had any interest in that. And if so, we would go back to the other taxing districts and see what the interest is, not trying to force this on to anyone, but wanting it to be a decision of the taxing districts. So I am going to stop share there and then take it back for discussion.
How often can an urban renewal district be amended?
The urban renewal district can be amended as many times as it wants. However, the maximum indebtedness, so this increasing the amount, this is the last time they can do that unless they get concurrence from taxing jurisdictions that it is okay to do. So this is the last time the city council can make this decision. If they ever wanted to do it again, and the statute isn't consistent on these things that receive concurrence. So in that case, it has to be 3 of the 4 top taxing districts who have to give approval for another future increase.
Okay, my next question is on revenue sharing. There is no scenario that if the city of Monmouth and or the school district said no, then you could never get to 75%. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So why, I think the bigger question is, what is the city of Monmouth gonna, do you want revenue sharing or not? Because if your answer is no, it's irrelevant what we say.
Well, I mean, I think that Elaine outlined our hope was to gauge interest about what the other districts wanted. So I would say, and Janet Chenard has joined us, she's our finance director. We haven't had a full conversation about our interests. So we haven't.
Okay,
One of the things that waiving revenue sharing would do was cause the district to terminate 2 years earlier. And I should have said that when I gave the analysis of the revenue sharing. So instead of fiscal year end 2035, if there is no revenue sharing, the district would end in fiscal year end 2033. And that is one of the benefits of, I work all over the state, and in other communities, taxing districts have sometimes decided that they would prefer that the district just end instead of getting smaller amounts of money over time and having the district go on longer. So that is the rationale behind why you would not take the revenue sharing.
How many of those districts have ended their urban renewal district on time? How many don't ask for extensions and continue them on for much longer than the original district was formed?
I think that's a great question, and your county assessor asked a similar question yesterday. And I do work all over the state, and there are districts that close. And just the last year, a district in Astoria closed, a district in Lincoln City closed. Next year, one district in Wilsonville, a large district, is going to close. The following year, another large district in Wilsonville is going to close. A year ago, a district in Sherwood closed. So those are just districts I know of just recently that have closed. But yes, districts do close. And I don't believe it is the intent, and we'll let the city folks speak to this, to do any further extensions of this district. I think their intent is to try to undertake these final projects and then close this district.
But of course, that's not a commitment. And of course, you can't say that for them.
I
There's
cannot know.
There's no legal means in which there's no legal pathway in front of them right now that says they will need to close. And in fact, even if we asked to waive revenue sharing and got 2 years less, there's no real promise that that is going to happen. To Greg's point, I mean, that it is possible. In fact, maybe even likely that you will still need more revenue from this taxing district for furthering these projects or completing the projects in front of you. So that does have a possibility there. Even though we might get 2 years less of the commitment and no revenue sharing, there's no commitment, wouldn't be a commitment from anybody at this point that you would close this district at the end of this term.
No, but I guess I would say, well, I can't offer an ironclad commitment that you would be looking for, or a promise. I can affirm that what Elaine said is true. It's our intent, and we've been looking at completing the projects that are before us, and our reason for proposing the substantial amendment is really about maximizing the use of the maximum indebtedness to just complete these projects. So it is the agency's intent, was the district at the point that these projects are completed.
So I'm curious about why these two parcels? How did this happen? And why are these two parcels the targets for this expansion?
Speak to that. Yeah, I can speak to that. So again, as Elaine had mentioned, these are parcels that are zoned mixed density residential and medium density residential, and we've got development interest in them, but they have a number of challenges that make them expensive to develop and build on. Wetlands being one of them, that always adds to the cost when you need to mitigate. And then also infrastructure challenges. And so you add that on top of, street improvements, water line improvements, sewer line extension, it makes it really hard to pencil out. So we see these as opportunities. It's our goal as part of our housing and our planning, our housing production planning strategies to, again, be a partner to increase the amount of housing available, knowing that there's a shortage of that. So That's why we're kind of strategically trying to pull those in. They're on the boundary and touching right now. So they made logical sense from that perspective as well. I think they total just under 7 acres, just for, perspective on size of the parcels. So, yeah. And urban renewal statutes, Wayne can probably speak more specifically to this, but they do have limitations on how much land that we can bring in, how much assessed value. So we're still under that threshold with these 2 parcels.
And so I don't really understand these charts. I don't see these very often, so are the values on these charts based on the tax valuation or tax assessed values on these properties currently?
Which charts are you?
Well, on all of these charts for the impacts, are these the tax levels that are on these properties currently that are being?
Yeah, this is Elaine. That is correct. What our financial analyst does is takes the information that the assessor produces every year on the urban renewal area, and then adds in projected development and assumptions for future growth to make projections for what the impacts will be in the future. And on those 2 specific parcels, they make a minimum, a small amount of difference to the overall tax increment projections. They'll increase them a little bit, but not a lot compared to the overall growth of the urban renewal area.
But these valuations in these impact charts are based on fully built out facilities.
They're based on the expectation that development, some specific development within the community is occurring and will occur, and based on the existing assessed values. So the city was able to provide us information on projects that will be within the area that will be going on the property tax roll, and will be increasing the values above the 3% that properties typically increase every year. So we were able to add those projections into the projections to make them more realistic.
So the development to the north, which is the bigger subdivision plan that you're proposing to amend into the urban renewal district, what is the housing development estimate? How many houses are going to be built in that? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
To the north, the areas that we're proposing are on the east, the southeast.
North.
The two parcels we're proposing to bring into the district are.
Is one off of Riddle?
No,
Oh, okay.
Hoffman?
no.
Those already exist.
I'm reading it.
What you're looking at on the map already exists. It's just these 2 with the stars on them.
Oh, yeah,
So I'm asking the question specifically about these 2 small parcels.
I see.
I can speak to those at least. So one is 16 units is projected on the smaller piece, and then we don't have a specific development plan. There are wetlands on the one off of 99.
Be an extension of
It
Gwen
looks
Street.
like Oklahoma piece is what we're calling now.
It's truly Gwen Street as platted, right?
Yeah.
So
So that one is 9 units per acre, but they won't be able to get the full build out on that 6.3 acres again, because
it's intended also to be mixed density.
yes, it is already zoned that now. Mhm.
And I'm asking these questions because I don't understand how all these valuations. I'm wondering what the real tax impact is if the targeted interest here for fully built out mixed density was finished. What would the tax values be
Yeah.
on those properties at the end of this
Yeah.
development?
Yeah, and because these are, compared to the overall size and impact of the district, these are smaller valuation projects. They're more targeted for the housing value and benefits. the large bulk of the growth in the tax increment, a lot of that is coming from like S curves and the industrial and the parcels on the north. are
You're
generating
not,
that.
you're not compelling me, Suzanne. You're not helping me here. I want to see the answer. I want to see the answer to, I don't need revenue sharing because I'm going to see such a substantial increase in taxation of a fully built out property. That's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to,
Specifically about the housing pieces, and those are smaller.
well,
but
these
there's
two
a-
parcels that are being added, the
Yeah.
implication is that it's going to be fully built out and it will have a higher level of taxation,
It will,
right? And a benefit
Yeah.
to all taxpayers by doing this.
yeah, and I'm saying proportionately, the other vacant commercial industrial parcels that will get built out through the duration of this plan will generate higher return, larger amounts, but yes, there will still be increased property values that come from those housing units. There's also the added benefit of providing that housing opportunities in our community as well, so.
Do you have any, what proportion of currently undeveloped industrial, commercial land is aspirationally hope to one day be developed?
So the acreage, so most of our industrial is on the southwest and the up by Hoffman Road. And we do have some floodplain challenges and wetlands associated with Ash Creek, especially on the ones off of Hoffman. So I don't have the specific acreage amount on the top of my head. I'm trying to think of the parcel to the south, I think is around 10 to 15 acres. There's still some vacant land in our, we call it the Rosemead Industrial Park, off of Eccles Street that can generate increments. And then the piece off of Hoffman is very large. That's like 66 plus acres. But again, not all of that is buildable based on the flood and the creek and wetland issues with that. So. And those were pieces that were already, they're in our existing urban renewal plan. So we basically pulled in our commercial and our industrial into the urban renewal, those main ones.
Well, I get the need for the urban renewal districts, because when you have the infrastructure costs, trying to up that cash is pretty tough.
That's been the primary function for, as we've been looking at our project lists, I think that's, Suzanne covered it in her overview of the projects, that the ways that we can incent and provide, to share in the infrastructure costs makes the difference to make these projects happen.
And the housing production strategy is based on the housing needs analysis, which showed a pretty high need, right? In medium and high density.
Yes, yeah.
And you see this as helping you incent towards those goals.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just those two parcels too. I mean, there's opportunity for mixed use as well, like we saw with Monmouth Common that brought on 27 new apartment units as well most recently. So, yeah.
Anything else? So.
You don't have to make any decisions other than if you want to think about participating in revenue sharing.
I'm not ready to make any decisions personally.
Yeah, I need a little more information too. So. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. And let us know if there's more information we can provide or questions.
We're reaching out to you.
Okay. Thanks.
Lots of cool things happening in Monmouth.
Keep that going.
City Hall's, you don't have to report on that.
Oh, are we talking about City Hall? Yeah. Looks great.
Moving along.
Progress. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there a need for an executive session today?
Yes, sir. The board will meet in executive session pursuant to ORF 192-660-2H to consult with the council concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed.